Get ready to hear the truth about America on a show that's not immune to the facts with your host, Dan Bongino.
All right, welcome to the Dan Bongino Show on this rather somber Monday. Producer Joe, how are you today?
Yeah, I could be a little better, Dan.
Yeah. Really rough weekend, folks.
Man.
Just unspeakable national tragedy repeated twice this weekend. We've got a lot to cover on this, including the despicable, grotesque, disgusting tendency of people in political power with a media voice to want to blame people for a tragedy like this. It is one of the most disgusting things I've seen or heard, this trend in politics. I don't even know where to go other than to roundly condemn what happened. I want to talk about some of the Secret Service stuff, some of the research they've done on this, what you need to know. It's important, critical stuff. I also want to get to some other breaking news and things that happened over the weekend. So please don't go anywhere. It's going to be a very important show today. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Teeter. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the products we use as sponsors on the show I get to use often. This is one I use twice a day. It is the Teeter inversion table. That's Teeter, T-E-E-T-E-R. If you go to teeter.com/Dan, you can check it out. I've had back issues and arthritis. Inverting on the Teeter inversion table helps me decompress. Ladies and gentlemen, it clears my head too. Not only makes my joints feel better, but I'm giving you my personal experience, makes me feel better too. I don't know if it's the increased blood flow to my brain. I don't know what it is, but it works. I love the Teeter inversion table. It's one of the best products out there. I use it before the show. Decompressing on a Teeter inversion table for just a few minutes a day is a great addition to your daily routine to maintain a healthy, supple spine and active lifestyle without the pain. If you have back pain, you've been lucky enough to avoid it, check out the Teeter inversion table. I feel like a new man when I get off it. It decompresses my spine. It's good for my shoulders and my joints. Over 3 million people have put their trust in Teeter. For a limited time, you can get Teeter's brand new 2019 upgraded model of the inversion table, the Teeter Fit Spine with Bonix accessories. It includes the Stretch Max handles, get a nice stretch there, an easy reach ankle system, plus a free inversion program mat with 24 illustrated stretches and exercises. Teeter inversion tables have thousands of 5-star reviews at Amazon. They're rated now 4.6 stars. And with this deal, you can get $150 off when you go to teeter.com/Dan. That's teeter.com/Dan. Includes free shipping, free returns, a 60-day money-back guarantee, but you won't need it. No risk to trying it out. You can only get the new 2019 Teeter Fit Spine Inversion Table plus a free inversion program map by going to teeter.com/Dan. That's teeter.com/Dan. Go check it out, folks. I really like it a lot. All right, let's go. Let's get to the show today. So, folks, first, we've obviously had two unimaginable tragedies in both El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. One incident involved a savage who walked in a Walmart, started shooting the place, killed 20 people, injured many more. Another one was in outside of a entertainment district in Dayton, Ohio, outside of a location called Ned Pepper's, where another maniac shows up, starts shooting there. I believe 9 people were killed there, multiple injuries, up to 80 people injured. President Trump just got off the air. We listened to his speech. I will get to that. I want to hit a couple of important points today. Number one, the blame game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sick. This is disturbing. Here is video of Democrat Congressman, current candidate for president from Ohio, Tim Ryan, not even thinking twice. This just happened, keep in mind. We're less than a couple of days removed from this. This just happened, and this was Tim Ryan's appearance on Maria Bartiromo's weekend show on Fox. Listen to this. And I can't explain to you in words, in strong enough words, how unconstructive this is towards solving the problem. Play that cut.
The environment that we've created in the United States, that the president has created in the United States, honestly, for a guy to drive 10 hours to go kill Mexicans, like what happened in El Paso, is sickening. And I think that the environment around anti-immigration, the race issues that are so polarizing today, that the president throws gasoline on, it's got to stop, Maria.
So now the president is throwing gasoline on these race issues? The president's doing that. Is this guy serious? Folks, we just had close to 30 people murdered in a weekend by 2 lunatics. People who aren't I was out. I said I was on Fox and Friends. I do the regular Monday morning appearances, but my wife and I were out in Walmart this weekend. We shop in Walmart like a lot of other middle-class Americans do. We go to the one here in Martin County. And I'm not making this up. I'm not messing with you. I'm sitting there on the line getting ready to check out. It was a long line. It was very crowded this weekend. It was raining, so a lot of people weren't in a rush to get outside. And next to me was a Hispanic family. I don't know where they were from, Central America. I'm not sure. I don't know the country. I didn't ask. I couldn't, my eyesight's not that great anymore. But I know that because they were speaking Spanish, so it wasn't hard to figure out. And I thought, can you imagine this lunatic walks in there, gets in his car, pulls out a high-powered rifle, and starts shooting people, innocent people in a Walmart shopping with their families because he wants to kill Mexicans? Do you realize what kind of a savage? I'd call you a pig, but pigs actually have some function in society. They can provide food. It's a disgrace to pigs to call you a pig. Do you realize what kind of an animal you have to be to do that? Now, I get it, those listening, that you understand that because we're sane, rational creatures. We're not sociopaths like this lunatic. But I bring that up because can we all for a weekend just grieve a little bit? Can we grieve and get into a conversation about what is going on in our broken culture without having to immediately resort to pandering for votes and campaign donations like Tim Ryan did? The president's racial rhetoric. You do this to the president. You think this is a political issue? Not a cultural problem? Now, the problem with this kind of senseless, ridiculous, blame game rhetoric. Now, why is he blaming him, by the way? But I don't want to lose where I was. But why is Tim Ryan blaming him? Well, because he's a political hack, number one. But secondly, because this shooter had some kind of manifesto against Mexicans, which he correlates to the President of the United States disingenuously. Notice, Joe, how this weekend you've seen very little coverage about how the killer in Dayton, Joe, was a follower of leftist ideology. Apparently was a supporter of some of the Democrat presidential candidates and had a far left ideology. Notice you don't hear a lot about that. So again, their so-called principles, they don't have any. With Tim Ryan is, if you have some maniac who hears a political speech and kills someone, and that political speech happens to be something on the right, conservatives are responsible. But when the exact same thing happens on the left, and someone appears to be motivated by political ideology on the left, that has nothing to do with it. These people don't have principles. They are trying to silence you. That's what happened, folks. There were two devastating incidents, two different political ideologies that these people apparently followed, but only one of them was the focus of media attention. The guy they believe was motivated by Trump. Now, the point I was making, what is so destructive about this, outside of the idea that it coarsens the discourse to a level that's unlistenable? What's destructive about it, Joe, is the real problems that may be at the core of, folks, listen, nobody does this anything by ignoring this. Whether it's a trend up or trend down, I get it, crime in the United States, gun homicides have gone down, and I will get to that at the end of the show. Don't go anywhere about how it's the guns argument. It's not. But us pretending like it's not an issue is ridiculous. This is clearly an issue. People have died, lots of people. The trend is, to me, is irrelevant. The fact that it's happening at all isn't what motivates a person to walk out of his house with a high-powered rifle and shoot some innocent person in the face. What motivates them to do that? This is an issue. We should all be, it's not political. Now, finally, some serious people, unlike Tim Ryan, other than these other Democrats trying to score a cheap Iowa caucus vote out of a national tragedy, the Wall Street Journal did some actual homework this weekend on substance, devoid on the left. There's a great article. I'll show you some of the takeaways from it because this is important stuff. The killers in our midst Nearly all mass shooters have been young men alienated from society by the editorial board. Ladies and gentlemen, I came from a prior line of work. I don't want to, listen, I'm not trying to beat anybody over the head with my experience here, but this is what we did in the United States Secret Service as federal agents. We focused on targeted violence. There's a difference. Targeted violence, not random street robberies, not a felony assault in the street in a bar fight. Targeted, pre-thought out, advanced planning violence, school shootings, political assassinations, mass shootings like this, like we saw in California, where there's some pre-advanced, thought out planning. Targeted violence has some hallmarks. There are some things, some signs we can see. I'll get to in a couple minutes some of the Secret Service research on that. But I want to point out as well what the Wall Street Journal points out this morning. Here's takeaway number one from the article. One of these social, cultural causes we've seen to this, ladies and gentlemen, we have a culture rot problem. Here's a quote from their piece. The one price we are paying for the decline in what late sociologist Peter Berger called mediating institutions that help individuals form cultural and social attachments. Churches, business, social clubs like the Rotary, charitable groups, even bowling leagues, and especially the family. Government programs can never replace these as a protector of our troubled young people. Oh,
Amen, bro.
Joe,
Yeah.
you're a little older than me. Not a lot, but a little older than me. Joe's got life experience I don't have. He's been around, Joe. And I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah.
He's gotten through some tough times, some ups and some downs, and we were not always in this position.
No.
I say that, not to point out Joe's age. I say that because Joe remembers a time I didn't. I wasn't alive. I'm only 44. Mm-hmm. Folks, there was a time where community mattered. Social interaction mattered more than social media. Interacting on Twitter and Instagram likes is not the same as going to the Rotary. Now, I point out the Rotary for a very specific, Joe knows what it is, but I know what it is having run for office. Folks, I point it out for a very specific reason. When I say that now, most of the young people, it's not your fault, folks. You didn't invent the technology and destroy it. I'm not blaming young people. I just want to be very clear on this. You grew up in a different time. You are most likely listening to my show right now, Joe, going, what the heck is the Rotary? Exactly.
Yeah,
and when the Wall Street, remember, when the Wall Street Journal mentions things like bowling leagues, what's your response? Listen, I know it. I know it because I read it and I had the same response. Because again, I grew up in a different era than Joe. You're probably thinking, oh, that's corny, goofy. Who does bowling leagues anymore? Exactly. Church clubs. Church club. Church club. Coffee and donuts after church. I know, my wife and I don't. We go to church and so we're in a rush all the time. They have coffee and donuts in our church. We haven't been there in forever. Because what are you thinking right now when you're listening? I know it, you college kids. I'm not knocking you at all. It is not your fault. Society changed around you. You didn't change it. You're probably listening going, Rotary clubs, church clubs, bowling leagues? Goofy. That's hokey.
Yeah.
But that wasn't hokey when Joe grew up.
No, sir.
Right, Joe. I only remember. Again, Joe is older than me, but Joe, I use him as an example here because my mom used to go to like bowling out with Saturday night with friends. I don't remember if she was in a bowling league or whatever, but they used to have card game clubs. Remember, Joe, in the neighborhood?
Yeah, my old man used to go bowling all the time.
Right now, but you and I both know, Joe, that the younger kids listening are probably like, that's goofy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not goofy. This was the way society and people interacted before the invention of the smartphone. Now, I don't want to be dramatic and say the smartphone is the end of society. There have been a lot of positives about this. Exchange of information. People can look up stuff in a snap. You can connect with old friends I still talk to. Listen, for all my complaints about Facebook, I still keep contact with people I went to grammar school with who I can literally, not figuratively, tell you I would never have had a word with otherwise. I saw a woman I went to grammar school with this week. I was showing a picture of my wife. I said, this was the real popular girl in grammar school. She now she's a woman, obviously, sells real estate. It's nice to see what people are doing. It really is. It's like, wow, they came a long way, doing really well for themselves. But folks, there's been a downside. We have disconnected from social interaction in our neighborhoods and replaced it with social media interaction, which is sterile and dry. The moral values we get by Joe and his dad in the card club and my mom in a Saturday night out bowling with friends and the laughs and the pats on the back and some of the fights. I don't mean the fist fights, but say sometimes you had to learn what not to say, right, Joe?
There you go, brother. Sure.
You're
That's
out there.
how you learn.
Joe's out there. Joe worked in a social environment on radio for years. Sometimes I know because I was there. Sometimes Joe got into tiffs with people at work. You learn what to say and what not to say. And they learn the same.
Absolutely, Daniel. Yeah.
Maybe they say something to Joe that they didn't know bothered Joe. You know, I know.
Behind the screen, dude.
I'll give you an example of even my dealings with Joe because we bear all here on the show.
Yeah.
Don't ever mess with Joe's work ethic. He doesn't like that. And I don't mean I never question his work ethic, but sometimes some of the language I've used with Joe and I, listen, not everything's peaches and cream here, and this show is an open door, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I get it that sometimes I've had to call up Joe and be like, Joe, I wasn't questioning your work ethic at all. Because Joe doesn't like it. Joe works. I know that. But now I know that about Joe, and I didn't tweet it to him. It's because I talk to Joe and I deal with him. But that's not what these kids are doing. They're not doing it anymore, Joe,
Yeah, I had to learn, how to interpret you. I had to learn how to get along with you. Like I had to learn to get along with the people at the radio station. That's part of life. That's the interaction. This,
But Joe, that's from this back and forth that's being lost right now.
Yeah,
that's hokey. Kids, you know what? And young men and women out there. You know what? Maybe it's not hokey. Maybe once in a while you got to show up at a Rotary Club and be like, I was reading this weekend. It's to show you how some people get totally disconnected from the society around them. And it's best, at some point, you really have learned no social interaction. I was reading a report this weekend about baseball and how Mel Hall, who used to be an outfielder for the Yankees and was deemed at one point to be a real cancer in the White House. The manager at the time, Buck Showalter, when he knew he had to get rid of Mel Hall and let him go, even though he was a very talented baseball player. He was a left-handed outfielder, left-handed hitter. Mel Hall went out to they have Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium when all the, the retired players come out.
Yeah.
Mel Hall walked out on the field during Old Timers Day, according to this story I read, and said to Buck Showalter, the manager, "Who the F are all these old guys on the field?" Showalter said, "That's the day I knew I had to get rid of him." The guy was so obtuse and unaware of who these legends were on the field because he apparently wasn't interested in any kind of social interaction at all, that his first response was, "Who are these people on the field?" He's like, "That's when I knew he had to go." Right? An unbelievable, folks. I'm telling you. Again, I'm using the Mel Hall example as an example of the importance of social interaction here. The fact that we have replaced social media interaction, we have replaced with societal interaction, where people learn the rules of empathy and how to sympathize with other people, empathize with other people, feel their feelings. One of the best lines I ever heard, not to drone on about it, but this is really important. Being a parent is hard. Joe knows, Paula knows, I know. It's hard. You screw up a lot. There's no guidebook. There's no manual. Things you thought were right were wrong. Things you thought were wrong were right. People tell you timeout works. I can tell you it didn't work with one of my kids. It just didn't. I don't know. We had to try other things. Parenting is really hard. And I'm always reading about how to be a better parent because it is the number one job, not podcasting, not Fox News. Me, as a father to my two daughters, is the number one job I have. There's not a close second. And I read one day, teach your kids, say to them when they do things that are wrong, that if you were watching this person in a movie or reading about them in a book and it's you, would you be proud of what that person did? And I said, that's brilliant. I say it to my daughter all the time. If what you just did, and say it's something she did, it doesn't matter. You fill in the blanks. We all got kids who do, silly things, sometimes wrong things. They cheat on tests or whatever it may be. Would you be proud of that person if you saw him in a movie? And it forces them to remove themselves from making the world about them and to see themselves as part of a bigger picture. No, I wouldn't be proud of me if I saw me in a movie doing that. It was some really amazing advice. It gives them an elevated sense of social intelligence, what their role is in a bigger mosaic of people. It's not about you. But to these savages that showed up to shoot up this bar in this entertainment district and this Walmart, it is about them. It's only about them. If they felt the pain, the actual physical and mental torment of what they were about to do, they wouldn't do it. It would be repulsive. But yeah, let's blame President Trump. Unbelievable. Folks, moving on to another piece I saw, which is important. Again, I'm going to get to the gun debate later too. I've got something, because we are distracting people with President Trump did it, his rhetoric did it, he's a racist, white nationalist, the guns, all this, it's the gun problem. Folks, it's clear we have had guns in our society forever. Since the inception of the United States, we have had firearms. I'll get to some of the data later. But if I may, one quick anecdote too. I had a friend, he was a Secret Service friend of mine. It was a guy, I'll leave his name out of it. He knows who he is, he's retired now. But he was a good friend of mine. And there was an incident like this a while ago when I was friends with him. We don't talk as much anymore. And he said, Dan, it can't be the guns. I don't know what the guns. And Joe, maybe you can speak to this too, but he said, when I was a kid, this is my agent friend talking, he said, I used to drive to school with my 22 in the back of my truck on a rack, and so did my other friends. Like, nobody thought anything of it.
Yeah, I saw that quite a bit in high school, yeah.
Yeah. It was not again, his words, I didn't have that experience. I took a bus to school and a train. But he said the parking lot was littered with Ford, Chevy, and Dodge trucks with a rifle in the back on the gun rack, and nobody thought anything of it. Something is rotting in the culture. The breakdown of the family, fatherless kids, endless action on Twitter and Facebook, devoid of any social interaction in public at all, social intelligence going down, narcissism, egomaniacs, likes on Instagram over a conversation with your kids. Are we willing to have this conversation? Folks, another piece at the Wall Street Journal. Again, getting to the real problem here. This is a good one. Mental illness and mass murder. The FBI found 70% of shooters had stressors or concerning behaviors prior to the attack, by E. Fuller Torrey, August 4th, 2019. I've got two particular takeaways from this piece. Now, again, we have to preface this by saying a couple of things. Number one, this should not stigmatize people with mental illness. When people with mental illness are being treated, as this article points out, by the way, the rate of violence by people with mental illness is roughly the same as people without mental illness. I just want to be clear on that. I spent a lot of years in graduate work in psychology. I'm very proud of it. I don't advertise it a lot because it's not usually relevant. It is now. But people who are left untreated, there are clearly markers here where there's something to be concerned about. Now, one of the first takeaways from this piece, this is important, stuff we should be focusing on. Quote, so what role does mental illness play in these mass killings? Multiple studies done between 2000 and 2015 suggest that about a third of these mass killers have an untreated severe mental illness. If mental illness is defined more broadly, the percentage is even higher. In 2018, the FBI released a report titled, A Study of the Pre-Attack Behavior of Active Shooters in the United States Between 2008 and 2013. It reported that 40% of these shooters had received a psychiatric diagnosis, and 70% had mental health stressors or mental health concerning behaviors before the attack. Ladies and gentlemen, what's the takeaway? There are signs. We are missing signs somewhere. Now, the National Threat Assessment Center that does work with the United States Secret Service, where I used to work. Why? Because the Secret Service specializes in targeted violence. Ladies and gentlemen, there are commonalities between these different spheres of targeted violence that have interconnecting points. Those spheres, Targeted violence directed at politicians, political assassinations and attempts and threats. Targeted violence directed at schools, school violence. Finally, mass shooting events thought out in advance, not random acts of violence. The Garlic Festival, El Paso, Dayton, these were things that were planned out in advance. Targeted violence has hallmarks. One of the hallmarks is upwards of 90% of the people engaged in these targeted violence incidents had told someone or broadcast a signal beforehand that this was going to happen or that they were going to engage in some kind of violence. Ladies and gentlemen, we are missing something. The second takeaway from the piece, which harps on this exact point. This is important. Quote, most recently in July of 2019, the United States Secret Service released its report, Mass Attacks in Public Spaces 2018. The report covered 27 attacks that resulted in 91 deaths and 107 injuries. The investigators found that 67% of the suspects displayed symptoms of mental illness or emotional disturbance. Listen to this, please. In 93% of the incidents, the authorities found that the suspects had a history of threats or other troubling communications. The results were similar to those of another study published by the Secret Service on 28 such attacks in 2017. Folks, we are missing something. 93% had sent some red flag or signal out there that something should be done. Something. What now? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a libertarian at heart. And it's important to understand that I am not recommending a police state in any way, shape, or form. Civil liberties matter, most importantly, in trying times. But folks, if you have a family member or a friend that is broadcasting these kind of signals about engaging in targeted violence, talking about shooting at a school or at a politician, it is your moral responsibility to do something about it. I think you all know that. This isn't some kind of a lecture. The signs were there. This is a cultural problem, ladies and gentlemen. And resist the temptation, by the way, for politicians to, quote, do something. Because when politicians do something, typically it's the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. President Trump just got off the air. I salute his efforts to highlight the problem with mental illness in the country. But again, the immediate tendency to blame, we get blame with firearms. I'm going to get to that in a little while. Again, stay tuned. But I would be very cautious, ladies and gentlemen, about things like red flag laws. It is our job as citizens to protect civil liberties. What exactly does that mean? Does that person have to be committed first? Do they have to be deemed a danger to self or others? On these red flag laws, how are we preserving due process? I'm open to a conversation about what this is going to entail. But if it doesn't preserve civil liberties, I'm not interested. As we've seen, these things can later on be turned against people. And we have to be very cautious. Beware of the temptation to, quote, do something when it's done by politicians. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have to pay for the show. Tough day today. Sorry, we have to take a break, though, quick here. I will get back to this. Please don't go anywhere. Got this data to get to, and I've got some other stories as well, including just an absurd outburst at a Democrat Socialists of America convention. It's really another warning sign. I know, about the cannibalistic left eating itself alive. All right, today's show brought to you by our friends at Ollie. Really great company here. Ollie, you have that picture of Linda? This is our adopted dog. It's my mother-in-law. Look at Linda. I mean, that's not put a smile on your face on a really tough day. Linda, which is beautiful in Spanish. Yeah. Now, Believe it or not, she's 11. She's 11 years. I know, but look at those bright eyes there. Look at that coat. She eats Ollie, Linda. She loves it. She won't eat anything else now. Your dog's health is as important as every other member of your family, and it starts with what you feed them. Don't feed them overly processed junk. Feed them Ollie. It is human-grade food. I'm not kidding, folks. You can eat it. It'd be no different than making a steak and then feeding your dog pieces of the steak, right? Oh, it's dog food. No, it's food. You can eat it and the dog can eat it. This is human-grade food. I'm not kidding. You can eat it. It smells like real food. It looks like real food, has the texture of real food. Why, Joe? Because it's real food. It's not fake, overly processed garbage. They put dogs first, Ollie, with vet-formulated recipes and fully transparent ingredients to give your dog the healthiest food possible. Ollie makes fresh meals for dogs with real ingredients. You can eat it. They beat out store-bought food. Dog food at 10 to 1 on the palatability scale. You know what that means? It tastes good because they create customized vet-formulated recipes made with all natural ingredients, no preservatives, and sourced from U.S. family farms. Go to My Ollie, that's my, M-Y, OLLIE.com /try/Bongino. That's myollie.com/try/Bongino. myollie.com/try/Bongino. You'll get 60% off your first box plus a free box of treats. They've delivered 5 million meals and counting. Shipping is free. If your dog doesn't like the meals, send them back. But trust me, your dog, send them over to me. Linda will eat them. Ollie is offering our listeners 60% off your first box plus a free bag of treats at myollie.com/try/Bongino. This is the best deal they have available anywhere. myollie.com/try/Bongino. Check it out. Listen, baby looks so, Linda and baby, both the two dogs look so much better after Ollie, and they're more energetic too. Go check it out. myollie.com/try/Bongino. Okay, folks. Oh, this video. I know Joe gets to cheat. He sees the videos before the show. But so the Democrats, Socialists, of America had their convention. So, of course, socialists, but I mean, to be a socialist requires a degree of detachment from reality to begin with. But they had their convention this weekend. And what's been a common theme of the show? Common theme of the show is smile a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, knowing that the radical far left, bathed in this identity politics nonsense. You're a racist. They're a racist. He's a racist. She's a racist. Everybody's a racist but them. I told you that this will eventually eat itself, just like woke capitalism. You know, Gillette and all these other companies trying to be woke and appeal to social justice warriors who are losing money. All of that stuff is eventually going to go away over there because it eats itself. Because everybody then competes to try to be more woke and more attuned to the social justice warrior community. Joe, I need you for a second here to act as the audience ombudsman. Do you get what I'm saying here? That once you go down this path of who can be more attuned to radical leftist sensibilities, that it becomes a race to the bottom of stupidity.
It does. Yeah.
So whereas one person wants to change pronouns, one person's worried about trigger warnings, the other person's worried about, well, that triggered me. Well, that triggered me too. Well, I'm cued at triggers. I'm cued into triggers too. The light triggers me. This triggers me. I don't like that. The computer triggers me. It becomes a race to the bottom of stupid, which you saw erupt. Check out this quick piece from the Democrat Socialists of America at their convention. This is just embarrassing. Listen to this exchange and how this guy's offended by like the chit chat in the room. Check this out.
If we want to defeat capitalism, we are going to need a party that will organize working people to fight for the demands that we want and to win socialism. Thank you so much.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Okay, is there a speaker against name, chapter, pronoun?
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Remember The Hangover? The silly brother in Hangover, the dopey guy, when he's trying and he's trying to laugh and hold. So let's just go through that. Let's break that down, okay? So you have the Democrat Socialists of America. Again, requires detachment from reality to even be part of this group. So they're giving their opening manifesto there, the Communist Manifesto, whatever it may be. And some guy gets up to tell them and he opens it up, Joe. I don't know if you missed it. You may have missed it. He opens it up by saying, guys, which most people just say. They don't mean women versus men. Guys, it's just a generic term. I do it all the time. Guys, sometimes I say guys and ladies. Guys, everybody that. Guys, hey, guys. It's just meant to refer to a group of people. He opens it up by saying guys, then he gives his name and gives his pronoun classification. Did you catch it? You can rewind it on YouTube or 15-second, 20-second back on Apple Podcasts. He goes, what is his name? Joey Bag of Donuts or whatever. Joey Bag of Donuts, he, him. So he gives his preferred pronouns after already using the term guys. And Derek Hunter, by the way, is a great piece of this. It's in the show notes today. Check it out, the Daily Caller. Democratic Socialist Convention erupts into a woke-off over gendered language. This is great. It's up in the show notes. Check it out. This is so the woke-off begins. First he says guys, as he then gives his preferred pronouns, he, him. And then he goes on to complain about how his sensibilities are offended because there's chit-chat in the room. Now, Joe and I have done CPAC and stuff, and we've been to conventions. Joe, you think there's a little chit-chat there? A little bit, right?
You think?
It's like outright screaming. Like Joe and I have done entire shows with people like screaming in our ear. Listen, tough it up, dude. I'm sorry. You're at a convention. There's going to be chit chat. But that's, the social justice court. They are very, very weak. They don't have the guy can't apparently filter out some whispering in his background, which is pathetic. So then the other guy comes up and gets offended that the he, him guy who's offended remember, it's a woke off, who's offended at the chit-chat, he gets offended that guy started off saying the term guys, can we please use non-specific gender, like whatever, and he's offended. Folks, if you get the chance, I know you heard the audio, but check it out on YouTube, youtube.com/Bongino. The guy who comes up has dyed pink hair and a red tank top on, and he's all offended at the other guy using, it's unbelievable. It was a big woke-off. It was a woke-off. And I warned you, I've said repeatedly, this movement will eat itself alive, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot change, thousands of years of rules on language overnight by randomly claiming gender categories don't exist. You can't. And how do you know it? Guys, I would appreciate, he, him. He can't even do it. We showed that video a couple times of the California state senator. We're going to use non-gendered pronouns here. And then she goes on to talk about her high school teacher, says she wouldn't approve of this. And then the guy in the audience goes, you can't say she.
I kind of like, hey, y'all.
Works every time. Of course, they'll say that's racist, too. I mean, there's no limit to their depravity. Folks, the movement will eat itself because the woke-off will never end until there's nobody left. Like I said, smile just a little bit knowing that this movement is entirely, completely unsustainable. Okay, one more sponsor today. Great sponsors. We always appreciate them being here on the show. And then we'll get to some other stuff, including the gun stuff and another story. A lot of breaking news on China. Some big stuff. There's a lot of news to cover. It was a busy news weekend. All right, today's show finally brought to you by our buddies at My Patriot Supply. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we have real problems going on in the country. You've seen violent outbreaks. You've seen these armed attack on ICE facilities, police officers being heckled. You got issues. You always have the threat of emergencies. You always have the threat of disasters and hurricanes. I mean, I live in southern Florida where the threat of hurricanes is very real. You get about a week's warning, but the time to prepare is now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's why I insure my food supply, My Patriot Supply. Folks, listen, the time to prepare for emergencies is when things are calm. You don't want to run to the local grocery store and find out that there's nothing left on the food shelves. That is a disaster. The time to prepare for emergencies is now, when things are calm. You insure everything in your lives that matter. You insure your car, you insure your home. Folks, you cannot go without a food insurance plan. It makes absolutely no sense. What would you do, God forbid, if the grocery stores ran out of food? Think about it. You're going to farm your backyard? Do you even have the seeds or the knowledge to do that? Get yourself an emergency food supply today. The threat of violent weather is unmistakable. Earthquakes, hurricanes, and more. Almost every American is at risk in some form. It's why we use My Patriot Supply. They've revolutionized preparedness with an industry-leading line of food storage, water filtration, and other products that you may need at some point. Right now, save $100 on a 4-week emergency food supply. This 4-week food kit includes breakfast, lunches, and dinners. and it lasts up to 25 years in storage. Don't ignore the writing on the wall. Give yourself peace of mind and save $100 at preparewithdan.com today. That's preparewithdan.com. Preparewithdan.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I have about 8 to 10 of these kits myself. Pick up your 4-week emergency food supply today. Order now at preparewithdan.com. Go check it out, preparewithdan.com. Okay, moving on. Just quickly, story up at the Daily Caller. Trey Gowdy was on Fox News this weekend, and again, he's brought this up often, and it's worth repeating because he seems very concerned about it. And Gowdy had a lot of influence when he was in Congress. A story by Chuck Ross, hat tip to him. It's up in the show notes. Please check out the show notes. Subscribe to my email list. I'll email these right to you. Gowdy urges release of FBI informant transcript, says, quote, there are going to be others. Folks, regarding this case, what's going on here behind the scenes? There are allegations out there by Gowdy and others. I have no reason to disbelieve them that there is a transcript of a recording made of George Papadopoulos talking to a now known government informant, a spy working to target the Trump team, Stefan Halper, where allegedly, Joe, Papadopoulos is asked by Halper on this recording, in this transcript, about Russian emails, Russian dirt, and Papadopoulos says something to the effect of, what you're talking about is treason. I don't want anything to do with that. Something to that effect. I have not seen the transcripts, but Gowdy's mentioned this transcript multiple times. Here we go again, folks. I only bring it up because once this comes out, if it's in the IG report or is declassified, it is again more information out there that the government that worked to target Donald Trump is in fact hiding information about Donald Trump that would lead you to believe that his team was innocent. What we would call in legal parlance exculpatory information. A member of the Trump team, in other words, Papadopoulos, indicating on an audio recording that what these guys are engaging in is a crime and he wants nothing to do with it. No different than Joe being recorded on tape and a suspect for a bank robbery saying, what are you talking about? I would never rob a bank. I wasn't even there. It's called exculpatory evidence. Big story. Check out Chuck's update on that. Okay, I got two quick things too. China, a lot of breaking news on China. Also the gun thing, which we'll get to it last, but that's important as well. Folks, there's been a massive devaluation well, I don't want to say massive. I don't want to be dramatic. A big devaluation of Chinese currency. The Chinese yuan breaches critical level of 7 to the dollar, prompting a Trump critique. What's going on? Why does this matter to you? Folks, the trade war with China is heating up. I am not a fan of trade wars. I think they're very hard to get out of. In the case of China, though, I believe the president's doing the right thing. China has stolen our intellectual property for years. They are not engaged in even remotely fair procurement practices. They have been pillaging our American businesses for a long time by stealing what matters most, their IP, their intellectual property, and their trade secrets. Some of them have forced alliances companies in America to do business in China. In order to do so, they have to partner up with a Chinese company, which promptly steals their technology. It's wrong. It is going to hollow out our capabilities in this country. So President Trump is engaged in a tariff war. I'm not a fan of these. A tariff is a tax. Let's not mistake it for being anything else. But having said that, the Chinese and the way the Chinese responded have been holding down the prices. Let me walk you through what I mean by this. Let's say China makes widgets that we buy en masse. Who cares what the widget does? The widget could be, a watch widget, a toy widget. Doesn't make a difference. We buy a lot of these in the United States. You know that because, you pick up products, it'll say made in China, right? Those products in a trade war, when we put tariffs on those products, should go up in price. Why? Well, it's very simple, Joe. If we import widgets and those widgets are $10 each, and we put a 10% tariff on those products, then that product is going to cost $1 more. That product generally would cost $11 because that 10% tariff will usually be added into the price. It's not hard to figure out. You get what I'm saying? A widget comes into the United States. All widgets from China are going to be taxed an additional 10%. Those companies, of course, aren't going to eat that. So they just usually bump up the price to make up for the tariff. What's happening in China right now, though, and why a lot of these made in China products have not gone up in price. We've seen the inflation on these markers relatively tame, meaning the prices haven't gone up a lot. Why, folks? What's happening? There's no money fairy. The tax had to come from somewhere. The money had to come from somewhere. What the Chinese are doing is they are taking it away from their own citizens. Look at this chart up in the Wall Street Journal. Whoa. That's the Chinese yuan versus the US dollar. In other words, it's been devalued. The Chinese government that does not have an independent central bank is devaluing the value of their currency. Meaning what? Those widgets become cheaper because the same $10 you used to be able to get, say, 60 Chinese yuans with before, you can now get 70. So by cheapening their currency, by devaluing it artificially by their government mandates, it is a socialist country. By devaluing their currency, they've made their products cheaper because our dollars now buy more products. Right. Does that make sense, Joe? Before you had a dollar, you got six Chinese dollars. Now you get 7 Chinese dollars. So basically, if you were buying a widget, that same dollar could buy you 6 widgets at $1 each. Now it buys you 7, which is offsetting the tariffs. The prices have stayed relatively stable. Now you may say, well, that sounds great, a win-win for all. Well, them devaluing their currency it may be a win for us and the prices of Chinese-made products, but it's certainly not a win for Chinese consumers or Chinese workers. Why, Joe? They have to make 7 widgets right now to get the same dollar where they made 6 widgets before and got $1. They have to work harder for the same dollar. It's basically taking away the value of the Chinese workforce's work. That's what devaluation does. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? They made 6 widgets and got a US dollar for them. Now the same workers have to make 7 because the US dollar gives them more Chinese currency to buy widgets. Right. There's some downside to this. From the Journal piece, and they sum it up quite nicely. It destroys Chinese consumers as well. Because now Chinese consumers, their money's worth less. Their money buys less stuff. From the piece, you'll see the devaluation of this Chinese currency impacts Chinese consumers because their money buys less American goods too. The consumer power of their currency is now devalued. They can't buy as much stuff, so it's a double whammy for them, Joe. Chinese consumers have to work harder to buy the same stuff because their currency's worth less. But secondly, they have to work harder to provide more widgets to people from foreign countries whose currencies are rising against their currency because their dollars buy more of their stuff. You're working harder for less stuff. I bring this up, ladies and gentlemen, because currency flight's going to happen next. When the value of what you can buy in China with Chinese money, Chinese yuans, goes down, you want to get out of that currency. You have what's called capital flight. And what do? You cash it out and go invest in the United States where your dollars buy more, which craters your economy. I'm only bringing this up to tell you I think President Trump is going to win this. He's going to win this trade war. It is going to require some patience. Again, I'm not a fan of trade wars. There are going to be people who are hurt here. There's no doubt. But there are companies on a mass scale being destroyed and hollowed out by unfair Chinese practices now. And there's no easy way out if we don't fight back. All right, last story of the day. Getting back to the issue surrounding firearms, our Second Amendment, our right to defend ourselves, which is under endless attack. And again, politicians have to jump down this do something route. And that do something typically involves restrictions on your civil liberties when you've done nothing wrong. First, let's address the talking point that, again, we haven't even had funerals yet. And the left is already, I'm not even kidding, we haven't. And the left is already talking about gun confiscation measures from people who've done absolutely nothing wrong. It's time to address a fair question. Are firearms, does the data support the fact by the increased ownership of firearms in the United States is the problem? In very simple terms, are guns the issue here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, AEI did some pretty exhaustive research. Now, this data, it's a little dated, the data, it's up to 2013, but it's a pretty strong data set, and these charts are very easy to understand. I'll explain them to you. If you're on youtube.com/Bongino, you can see them. They're very easy to explain. If you don't mind, Paula, please put up chart number 1. Again, the data on this is clear. Here is, again, AEI, hat tip to them. Percent changes since 1993, so a 10-year data set, Joe. The number of firearms versus the gun homicide rate from 1993 to 2013. As we can see, and as I'll explain to you on this is very simple to understand. The number of privately owned firearms has gone up dramatically. It has gone up 56%. Yet the gun homicide rate has gone down dramatically in the exact same period, minus 49%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are trying to make a correlation to say increased gun ownership leads to increased gun crime, you are making the data, you're making a false argument. Listen, that's only if you believe in data. If you believe in fairy tales and making stuff up, that's fine. Do your thing. I'm telling you what the data says. The science, the numbers. Whether you choose to believe the numbers or not is entirely up to you. That's your issue, not mine. We do data here. Gun ownership has gone up. Gun crime has gone down. The exact opposite argument you think you're making is the true one. If guns were the problem and the only problem, I'm not suggesting that some people out there shouldn't be in possession of firearms that are, obviously, like these two lunatics this weekend. Obviously. But if the gun issue and gun ownership were the leading cause of what we thought was an increased gun homicide rate, the data should support that. They don't. The rate of gun ownership is up dramatically. Gun homicide rate is down dramatically by almost the same amount. Now, you may say, well, what about guns per person, per capita? It's not fair. You're mixing and matching data sets. Well, here we go. Chart number 2 shows exactly that. Again, hat tip AEI. Guns per person versus the gun homicide rate. Same 10-year period, 1993 to 2013. The amount of guns owned per person has gone up too. It went from 0.94 to 1.45. Yet the gun homicide rate per 100,000 people has gone down again from 7.0 to 3.6. So folks, again, the alternate argument, well, you're not using per capita data, you're conflating data with I'm not, I'm just giving you the numbers. The last solid data set we could get in a 10-year period, a nice, big, substantial, non-single subject design, shows when you measure gun ownership per person versus the gun homicide rate per 100,000, you also see per capita declines, and you make the opposite argument. Gun ownership has gone up, gun homicide has gone down. Again, referring back to the beginning of the show, ladies and gentlemen, that clearly what's going on here is there's not a political gun control solution. Some of the most dangerous cities in America have the strictest gun laws. The correlation is the opposite. Clearly, there's something outside of gun ownership, as I explained with that story with my friend. Guns have been around forever. Why these mass shootings and these young men losing their minds and engaging in this savagery? Listen again to the beginning of the show, and I think we'll find some clues in our culture rot. I want to make one last point, because I've seen it again because of the political people who can't get away from a political argument. Well, look what happened in Australia. Australia confiscated guns, and it's been a huge success. So your point, just to be clear, we're trying to speak in reason, sane terms here. Your point is what? Australia took away all the guns and incidences of gun crime went down? Number one, they haven't in select areas. But even if your point was that, I'll stipulate the point. Let's say gun violence was down dramatically in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, there are more guns now in Australia than there were before the gun ban. Oh, you're just making that up. Really? Is the Sydney Morning Herald too? Here's a newspaper in the show notes again today for you to bookmark at Bongino.com. Exclusive, March 27, 2019 by Bianca Hall. There are more guns now in Australia than before the Port Arthur massacre. Report. Ladies and gentlemen, read the story yourself. Are they making it up too? So if you're touting Australia as such a model of success against gun violence, there are more guns now, which makes the same point those two charts I put up before did as well. That increased gun ownership is not correlated with what you think it's correlated with. It's been correlated with a decrease in gun crime and gun homicides in the United States. And even if you believe in Australia, there are more guns now. Show the report to your friends who make this argument. So what are you saying? Australia's successfully combated gun crime by more guns? Here's the piece. It's right there. You think they're lying? Explain to me that phenomenon if you're making that argument, because it doesn't make sense. All right, folks, it was a really tough weekend. I'm sorry I wanted to update you on my birthday weekend. My wife just, today, we'll do that tomorrow, chat. We had some fun, and I do like to share with you some of my personal stories. I enjoy my family and Joe's company as well. But today just wasn't, it just didn't seem right for obvious reasons. It's a real national tragedy, and I just encourage everyone, can we just all just take a step back and everybody just try to avoid the talking points. I mean, it just really is disturbing that these people have to do all this stuff, and it's really disturbing that we have to fight back. There's nothing I would have preferred to do more than to just focus on obviously what happened this weekend and empathy for everyone involved. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been an endless assault on friends of mine and conservatives who are real clear thinkers on this, who want to solve this problem, and someone has to come to their defense. I appreciate you all tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you all tomorrow. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Today's show was brought to you by my buddies at Brickhouse Nutrition. They make some of the finest nutrition supplements on the market. My personal favorite is Foundation. Now, you don't hear anything shaking in there. Why? Because the bottle is empty, because I use it. I love this product. Check it out. Foundation. It is a creatine ATP blend. Does three things: look better, feel better, perform better. Go give it a shot. Go to brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Try out this creatine ATP blend and take the mirror test. If you don't believe me, take the mirror test. Before you try Foundation, right? Go check it out. Give it about 7 days to work. Take a little mental snapshot of yourself in the mirror. Look at yourself after 7 days. You're going to love this product. Go check it out. brickhousenutrition.com/Dan. Check out Foundation today. Can't recommend it highly enough. Bottle's empty. Miles, the owner of the company, send me some more. Thanks for tuning in, folks. See you all later.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud. And follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.